Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King. And the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem and environment where people thrive. Look, if this is your first episode, man, we just had an amazing recording last time. If you did not listen to it, go back to our last episode and tap in with us because we talked about a few things. We talked about the 4 stages of what we've seen are critical to moving organizations from just a mission to really being able to produce money. Then we really nailed down and focused in on how organizations need to get prepared. They need to prepare how to communicate their story. They need to clean up their systems, and they need to have strategy on how they specifically get in front of the right donors, build trust, and be able to transition that conversation to what? The conversation before the big ask. But look, before we get into what today is, before we get into the newest conversation, we want you to do one thing. There's only one way that we can build trust, and that's if we give, but you also give back to us. This is a reciprocal relationship that we have virtually, digitally, and between each other. So we want to ask you one thing. Can you just like the episode? Can you review the episode? Can you share the episode? Can you subscribe to the podcast? Because if you can do those things, we can continue to produce these types of episodes and continue to spread this message so that we can transform teams and ultimately empower communities. Look, Dan, we had an amazing conversation last time. It was a power session. You really broke down towards the end of the conversation how boring questions really build the foundation to trust. And you walk through a potential conversation that you would have and all of these different key components that you would ask so that you could really build that trust and establish that relationship. And one of the things that we ended off with is, well, what happens now? What happens now?
Great question. This is where people fall through. And this is my personal opinion, right? A lot of people have different cadences and such. What I love to do as we finish that conversation, I'm going to tell them, I in the last episode I'd mentioned, I'm asking them, what value can I bring to them? What can I do for them? Sometimes they say something, sometimes they don't. But what I like to do is say, okay, I'm going to send you an email within the next week. That's going to have kind of some of those talking and follow-up points from our conversation. And let's go from there. And what I like to do is that's kind of like my documentation. That's like the follow-up, like, hey, I'm going to send you XYZ. This is what's going on. This is what we talked about. Loved having our conversation. I noticed that you mentioned XYZ. Just wanted to share this with you, let you know that, we have some alignment. Like, this is what's going on here. Thought you might like to see it. Let's talk again soon. And then what I love to do is, I think we've talked about this in the past, Kyle. I live on my calendar. I live on my Google Calendar. I've probably got like 7 calendars on my Google Calendar so that I have everything in one place.
Yeah.
And what I am really great at is I pre-schedule and proactively schedule things. So if I just met with that person, depending on how the conversation went, right? If I had a lot of follow-up items, I'm going to send them an email probably in 2 to 3 days. And then I'm going to follow up with them about a week later. Because if I've learned nothing else from COVID, it's that it takes people a while to look at their emails. And I got to give them time. Now, once you get to like a week or so, okay, I'm going to send them a follow-up. So I put in my calendar after that meeting, depending how it went, we'll call it a week, week and a half later. I've got in there follow up with XYZ person, check in with them, right? Whether it's a phone call, a text, an email. Hey, just wanted to make sure you got my email. Would love to schedule something with you in the next 2 weeks just to follow up on this while it's fresh and warm for us, blah, blah, blah. And I think what's also really important is CRMs, right? Customer relationship management systems, right? I'm putting in everything. All these conversations I'm having with people, I'm putting in there. And that includes, if I had a great conversation, I'm going to put in a proposal or an opportunity about a future gift.
That's
and
good.
In that opportunity or proposal, I'm probably going to have some rough next steps. And that's going to stay in the system so that I know as I'm looking at them, as I'm going through my portfolio, as I'm figuring things out, I have next steps. And I need to figure out, how do I make that work in the next weeks and months to get myself to that endpoint of networking, connection, philanthropy, whatever that may be.
Dan, you talked from a perspective of someone that is an expert, that has been doing this at a high level, that has systems in place, that is organized, that is a leader, that approaches this work with intentionality, but then also grace as well. Talk to that person that doesn't have a CRM. This is probably the first time that they've heard about it. They don't have a multi-million-dollar budget behind them to be able to afford a lot of these tools, or they don't have the skill set developed yet to be able to understand how to do all these integrations and calendars and utilize all of this technology. What are some practical steps that you could give that individual or that you recommend that could be beneficial for them as well?
I'm going to start off with this. If you want to be legit and you believe in your mission and you believe in the story you're sharing with others, there are free CRMs that you can download and you can use. So there shouldn't be an excuse for not collecting things in an efficient and optimized way. I believe GiveButter has a free option. Neon One or Neon, I think HubSpot has a free option too. But even if you don't want to do that, use Excel. Use Excel, make some columns, make some rows, put in people's names, put in their contact information, put in a note section, throw in some bullet points, right? You can close that up. It doesn't have to be a huge section. You
Yeah.
can make everything an average height in there so it fits. And then when you double click on it, it opens up, it expands. So first thing is, and this is such a downfall, even of large nonprofits, you have to document everything you are doing
Agreed.
for you and for the people that come after you. Because there's nothing worse than looking like you don't remember anything from your previous conversation. You look like a
I agree.
fool.
I agree. You look
You
like a
you look like a fool. I mean, if you want to lose, right? We talked about trust. If you want to lose trust, that is the easiest way. And not a, oh, I know you mentioned like, your child may live over here or this or like things like that where you have some idea. I'm talking about total opposite,
yeah.
right? Like you do not remember it. You're pulling things out of your backside. Like you're not sure what's happening. You're just like, I know I met with them once before and we got a coffee. That is not, I'm speaking to the mic. That is not good enough.
Great. You can't expect full-time funding with a part-time attitude. You can't. You cannot expect full-time funding and you run your business like part-time passion.
Preach.
You have to be able to implement these systems. You have to, if you can spend $100 on Starbucks a month, you can spend $97 on a CRM system a month. If you can go and watch a movie twice a month and that's $100, you could be able to get QuickBooks to manage your books on a monthly basis. Oftentimes, the story of our bank account show our priorities and where we spend money. And if you are a grassroots organization, there are many tools. And if you download the Mission to Money downloadable, which there will be a link in the show notes of this episode, if you download that, we're going to give you all these tools. We're going to give you tools that we recommend to grassroots organizations, but then over 1 million organizations. We're going to give you all of the tools on how you shape your story and then how you develop the strategy. We're going to give you templates on all of the different ways and scripts that we use to ask questions in the preliminary conversations, but then also scripts for follow-ups. We're going to give you a cadence. We're going to give you all of these different platforms and tools and maps that we have used. But then you know what? If you utilize the tool that you're able to download literally for $1, you're able to download all of these tools that can supercharge your business for $1. And if you have it in you to invest just a little bit more, we've designed literally something for you. And it's called the Growth Alliance. And all you would have to do if you want this tool is to go to www.jointhegrowthalliance.com or just jointhegrowthalliance.com. And once you get to the page, there's going to be an enroll button. And then there's going to be a free downloadable that's going to cost you $1. It's free, but it's going to still cost you $1. And when you get that downloadable, you're going to be able to utilize all those tools. And if you need coaching, if you need strategy, if you need community, if you need experts to be able to help you utilize those tools, then just invest in the Growth Alliance. And let me ask you this, Dan, because one of the things that's challenging for me, and this may be controversial, is I only believe that you should ask what you're willing to invest. You should only ask for what you're willing to invest. If you won't invest $2,000 into your organization, how can you expect an organization to give you 20? If you won't invest 40 hours into your organization because you want to watch Netflix and hang out with your friends and do all of these other things, then how do you expect an organization to invest 40 hours into you? We want to invest in you. And all it's going to take is a simple investment into us so that we can continue to develop that relationship. We can impact communities together. Now, let's go back really quickly. When you think about all of this documentation, you have these tools, you utilize these systems. What does follow-up look like? How do you really know that it's time for you to really ask that person for the resources that the organization may need that you've been positioning them for?
That's a great question, Kyle. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think that really goes back to that root kind of question or thought process that we've talked about before in our Growth Alliance meetings, right? The last one that we had, I believe we were talking about people were unsure or afraid to ask, just ask in general, right? And I remember early in my career, it used to be, okay, well, you want them to be so invested that you don't have to ask, that they ask you, right? But I think, and I use the word a lot now, alignment. I think now it should still be easy to ask, but I think it should be easy to ask because you've built up so much trust. You understand, not know, right? Because there's a difference between knowing something and understanding something. You understand them so well that you can look at them and say, I know this person is aligned with this program, this operational piece, the general mission that we have, that I can go to them and say, hey, we've had these conversations. I know how you feel about this. You have told me how you feel about this. Can we have a conversation about what your support could look like and the impact that it could make for this organization? Now, you see what I did there? I didn't ask them for money. I asked them for permission to have a conversation about support. I didn't put it at money because we've talked about it before, time, talent, treasure, right? Everyone thinks you have to ask for the money. You need to ask. And I learned this when I was at Drexel. Shout out to Drexel on one of the trainings we had years ago. Someone told me this. They talked about ask for permission. Because if we're trying to gain trust and continue to build trust, what is more special than someone who could just be unprofessional as they wanted to, as pushy, for them to ask you for permission just to talk about this, to have this conversation? Because what does that do? It gives the power back to them.
That's
and
good.
Everything we do is about making sure the people we're working with understand they hold the power, and we're just helping them guide and helping offer resources and fulfillment. So ask to have the conversation about this. And then if they say not yet, if they say no, if they say yes, then okay, that next conversation, I can bring in some of these opportunities we have that align with them. So it's not just asking out of the blue. They know it's coming. They're relatively comfortable with it. And now you're bringing them options to have a conversation. Again, not just a conversation about talking about it, right? And not just asking them for it. You're having a conversation to say, how can we align together? Do you have the support, the willingness to help us fulfill this need and make this impact?
That's it. And Dan, if there was one point from this episode that is so powerful, it's that permission, that moving from I'm in control, I need this money, to, hey, let's work together. Let's figure out how we can impact together. And I love what you said about not just making it all about the transaction and the treasure, but making it about time and talent. Because what I've seen working in education as well on a K-12 level, I believe in invitation before transaction. I want to invite people into our space. I want to immerse you into our student programs. I want you to see it. I want you to feel it, because I think that in building relationships, it is so easy to give money and there's no attachment, there's no accountability, there's no relationship. I could stroke a check right now and not mean anything, but it's something different when I want to show up to your homecoming event. There's something different where I want to take 2 or 3 students under my wing and be able to mentor them. It's something different when I want to help those 3 students go through college and then be able to help them. All of those touch points are worth more than $100,000. When I can have your mental capital, when I can have your network capital, when I can have access for the various people that I am helping. And I want you, listener, to understand that. Yes, I recognize our organizations won't run unless there's money involved. We understand it. We understand the importance of it. We understand how much we have to go get it. And we've even done episodes where it's like, look, and why we love Vu Lee and his messaging in the nonprofit space is because he talks about the importance of money. And we talk about all of these frameworks and we talk about all of these different things. But when we look at the Vu Lees, when we look at the Darren Walkers, when we look at the Nye Whitakers, when we look at these specific people that are leading this space, they're talking about critical things that are cutting edge, that are disrupting how we often approach this as nonprofit leaders. So, shout out to the Trevor Noahs of the world. Shout out to the Stephen Bartletts of the world that are doing things different. But we have a question for you. As we prepare the most immersive, innovative, and exceptional experience that you're going to have at a nonprofit conference on October 15th through the 16th, right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have one question for you. If there was one speaker, if there was one leader, if there was one individual that you would take out money out of your 401k to come see. You would literally move your calendar, you would miss your birthday, you would take your anniversary trip to Charlotte instead of where you are and say, I have to see that person. We want you to tag that person below. We want you to tag that person. We want you to ask yourself, like, look, who are these 3 or 4 people? Now, let me ask you this. If there was an organization that you've seen that is doing amazing work that you would want to just sit down with, sit next to, collaborate with on a weekend, I want you to tag that organization. And after you tag that speaker, after you tag that organization, we want you to go to the Growth Alliance by going to jointhegrowthalliance.com, jointhegrowthalliance.com. And we want you to apply to be in our next cohort because we're doing some amazing things. And we want you to walk with us together so that we can make impact. Dan, close us out.
You know, Kyle, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. If you want people bought in, you got to give them something first, right? Everyone's like, how do I ask for the gift? How do I do this or that? You got to get them bought in. If they've got some time, if they have some talent that allows them to immerse themselves in the work that you're doing, what is better than making them a part of your mission? They're not looking from the outside. They are part of your mission. And then they can see how it truly works. And then you get the ease of asking for that permission, asking for that support. You got to get people in the mission and part of the mission, not just looking at it and talking about it.
As we always ask on the Contagious Culture podcast, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. You got to make yours worth catching. Confidence is contagious. But without clarity, clarity of your strategy, clarity of your story, clarity of your systems, it's going to be challenging for you to build contagious confidence, contagious results, and be able to create an organization that is truly creating compounding impact within your community. So let's go get it today. Make today the absolute best day that it's ever been. Go to jointhegrowthalliance.com and share this episode, like it, subscribe to it, and we'll see you guys next.